After my father's funeral, I returned home only to hear my aunt spit, "You don't belong here." I stood calmly. "You always hated me, didn't you?" She sneered, "You remind me too much of him." I pulled the ring off my finger. "Then maybe this shouldn't go to you either." I, 42 female, buried my father last month. The man who raised me, protected me, and taught me everything I know. After the funeral, I returned to the ranch that had been in our family for 4 generations. It was quiet. Cold. Just the way Montana can be in early spring. Inside, I found my Aunt Cora digging through my dad's study like she owned the place. When she saw me, she said flatly, "You don't belong here." I didn't flinch. "You always hated me, didn't you?" She looked at me, her eyes hard. "You remind me too much of him." So I pulled off my dad's old ring, the one he gave me just before he died, and held it up in front of her. "Then maybe this shouldn't go to you either." She went still, lips tight. And what she said next broke something deep inside me. "He wasn't even your real father." That was just the start. What followed unraveled my sense of identity, cracked open family secrets I never saw coming, and tested everything I thought I knew about love, blood, and loyalty. I didn't even want to be in Red Lodge that weekend. Funerals drain the life out of me emotionally, spiritually. I drove from Missoula the night before, thinking I'd stay 2 nights tops, just enough to help settle a few things on the ranch and check in with the attorney who handled my dad's estate. Dad had asked to be cremated. That surprised me. He was an old-school cowboy type, the kind of man who thought being buried in the earth was the only way to return properly. But he'd changed near the end. Got quieter. More reflective. Said less, but said it with more weight. When he handed me his wedding ring just days before he passed, he only said, "You'll know what to do with this." The funeral was modest. Cora insisted on speaking, which surprised no one. She always liked attention, always saw herself as the family matriarch after Grandma passed. I let her. I didn't have the energy to fight her. I barely got through my own eulogy. It was only when I got back to the ranch that the real battle started. The house still smelled like pipe tobacco, old books, and coffee. It hit me as soon as I opened the front door. That familiar sting of grief behind my ribs. The kind that builds slowly until it takes your breath away. I noticed right away things had been moved. The living room looked like ransacked boxes, half-packed bags, photo albums open on the floor. Upstairs, the guest room had suitcases piled high. I knew she was here. I didn't call out. I didn't have to. I found Cora in the study, crouched in front of the old safe behind Dad's bookcase. She was wearing gloves, sorting through documents, shaking envelopes like they might contain gold. Eli, her older brother, stood near the desk, watching like a quiet witness. He wasn't a bad man, just always took the path of least resistance. "You don't belong here," she said when she noticed me. "No hello. No, sorry for your loss." Just that. It felt like a slap. But I'd learned not to react to her venom. Not anymore. "You always hated me," I said. Not as an accusation. Just the truth laid bare. "You remind me too much of him." Her voice was cold. Not angry. Resigned. I pulled the ring from my finger. The one Dad had worn since before I was born. The one he slipped onto my hand when he couldn't even sit up anymore. "Then maybe this shouldn't go to you either." That's when something shifted in her face. Not guilt. No regret. Something uglier. She folded her arms and tilted her head. "He wasn't your real father, you know." My hands went numb. My breath caught, but I forced myself to speak. "What are you talking about?" "Your mother. She cheated. Left because she was ashamed. And he took you in anyway." Eli spoke then, his voice low, uncertain. "Cora." But she kept going. "He lied to everyone. Let the world think you were his daughter. You were just a stain he chose to keep." I left. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Couldn't stay with those words echoing in my ears. The next day, I drove to the county records office in Billings. I told them I wanted to see my birth certificate. The clerk, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense tone, pulled the file. "There's an amendment on this," she said, pointing to the corner. "Looks like it was sealed and reissued." She paused. "Do you want the original?" "Yes," I said, even though my voice shook. She left and came back with a single page. My mother's name was there. But under father, unknown. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I sat in my car outside the building for 20 minutes, just staring at that line. Unknown. I tried to think back. To anything. Something that could explain this. But Dad never treated me like anything less than his. Never flinched when I cried. Never hesitated to put me first. I returned to the motel in Billings and stayed for 3 nights. Didn't answer calls. Didn't go back to the ranch. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, playing every memory of my dad through my mind like slides in an old projector. Eventually, I went back to the house. There were more boxes now. More things are missing from the walls. The air smelled like other people Cora's perfume, someone's cologne. Not Dad. But I remembered something. Before he died, he gave me a letter. I hadn't opened it. I think I was scared it would be a goodbye I wasn't ready for. It was in the desk drawer. Sealed in a white envelope, my name written in the slanted, blocky handwriting I knew so well. I read it at the kitchen table. "Rowan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I know they'll come for you. I want you to know this, blood doesn't make a family. I raised you. I loved you. You are mine in every way that matters. Cora always hated that. She never understood. But I chose you. Everything I built was for you. Let them try. You have more of me than they ever will. Love, Dad." I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I finally understood. He knew. He knew the rumors, maybe even knew the truth. And he still chose to be my father. Not out of pity, not out of guilt. But out of love. Cora contested the will. She claimed Dad was too ill when he signed it. Claimed I manipulated him. That I didn't deserve the ranch, or the land, or the accounts. That I wasn't even his real daughter. But she underestimated me. And she underestimated him. The will was ironclad. Notarized. Witnessed. Dated months before his diagnosis. His lawyer, a sharp old man named Bryce Leland, testified that Dad was lucid, prepared, and utterly firm about his decision. I didn't fight her out of pride. I fought because he asked me to. Because he said I'd know what to do. She lost. Left Red Lodge not long after. But that's not the end of it. Not yet. Something came in the mail last week. An envelope. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a photo. An old one. A woman standing on a dock, pregnant. Smiling, but tired. The handwriting on the back was faint, but I recognized it instantly. "I never stopped loving you. I haven't told anyone about it yet. Not sure what it means. But I'm beginning to feel like the story isn't over. Not by a long shot." I kept the photo in my desk drawer for a week before touching it again. I didn't know who sent it, or why it came now, but something in me hesitated. The handwriting matched the note my mother left when she disappeared, same curves, same slanted M, same strange stillness in the letters. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not my best friend Marla back in Missoula, not my cousin Jeannie, who'd quietly apologized during the court hearings and then disappeared back to Bozeman. I kept it to myself like a matchstick too fragile to strike. That week, I threw myself into work. The ranch didn't care that the foundation of my life had just been shaken. The snow had melted, leaving slushy patches and damp fences. I fixed the broken gate leading into the northern pasture. Repaired the roof of the old tool shed. Reseeded the dry patches where the cattle used to graze. The ranch always kept me busy. That was the thing about it, its silence was loud, but never empty. Every evening, I'd sit on the porch and think about the things I could no longer ask my father. About whether he ever suspected the photo would surface. About whether he kept something else hidden, something bigger. And about my mother. If the photo really was from her, where had she been all this time? Did she follow my life from a distance? Did she regret leaving? I didn't want to romanticize her. I couldn't. She'd walked away without a goodbye, left my father to pick up the pieces, left me to carry the questions. But that one picture cracked something. She looked real in it. Humans. Not the ghost I'd been dragging behind me for 35 years. One morning, I called the number from the envelope's postage record. It had a Billings return scan, but no sender name. The clerk at the post office was kind, if a little confused about why I cared. "There's no guarantee we'll be able to trace it, ma'am," he told me. "Might have been dropped in one of the collection boxes by hand." "Even if you can't," I said, "I just need to know if it came from within the city." He paused for a moment. "It did," he confirmed. "North Side facility." That narrowed things a little. The north side of Billings wasn't unfamiliar to me. It was older, less polished than the bustling West End or downtown's new cafes. It was the part of town where life didn't hide its wear. I drove there the next day. Not sure what I was looking for. Maybe a sign. Maybe nothing at all. I walked past laundromats, a closed-up barber shop, a floral supply store with an out-of-business sign still taped to the door. It was quiet. I stopped at a used bookstore on a whim. Inside, it smelled like dust and old bindings, and the woman behind the counter had a voice like warm syrup. She asked what I was looking for, and I don't know why I said it, but I told her the truth. "I'm looking for someone who might have sent me something. Something personal." She tilted her head. "What kind of something?" "A photo. A note. I think it might be my mother." She didn't react. Just stared at me for a second too long. Then she said, "There's a woman who comes in here sometimes. Real quiet. Buys old diaries, blank ones. Never speaks much. Maybe in her 60s. She leaves notes sometimes, inside books." "What kind of notes?" "Quotes. Old poems. Sometimes addresses. Or initials." She walked over to the counter and pulled out a battered box of unsorted paperbacks. "Go through these. Found most of them yesterday. Haven't checked them yet." I went through them slowly, feeling silly. Until I opened a copy of the shipping news and saw it. A slip of notebook paper. Torn, folded in half. Written on it, in the same careful hand. I wasn't strong enough then. But I've watched it every year. No name. No contact. Nothing else. But I felt it. That pulse under the skin. The strange certainty that someone had been close all along. I thanked the woman and left. When I got back to the ranch, I sat on the front steps and stared out over the fields. The cottonwoods were just beginning to bud. I held the paper in one hand and the photo in the other. It was no longer about whether she was coming back. It was about whether I wanted her to. Cora hadn't returned since the hearing. But a letter from her lawyer arrived 2 days later, thinly veiled bitterness and a formality that made my skin crawl. In it, she requested the return of personal family heirlooms she claimed I had no right to. Specifically, she mentioned my father's journals, a pair of antique cufflinks, and the wedding ring. She closed the letter with a sentence that stuck with me longer than I wanted it to: "You're not who you think you are, Rowan. You never were." She was wrong, of course. I didn't need her permission to be my father's daughter. But the bitterness in her tone hinted at something else: envy, maybe. Or loss. Because no matter how much she fought, he chose me. And that, she would never be able to undo. Still, I didn't answer the letter. Instead, I went back into the study and unlocked the cedar chest he kept behind his desk. Inside were journals. Years' worth of them. I started reading. The first few were mundane. Crop notes. Ranch repairs. Tax issues. Then came the years after my mom left. She didn't just break my heart. She broke Rowan's world. I should hate her. But I can't. Not entirely. She gave me the only good thing she ever did. That one stuck with me. Scribbled in the margin like a secret he couldn't say aloud. Rowan asked today if she was ever coming back. I said maybe. I lied. I knew even then. She's not coming back. But I have to have enough. And further along, years later, another entry, she'll never know what kind of strength Rowan has. That kid was built from fire and grit. Every day I see more of myself in her, not in blood, but in will. That's what makes her mine. I sat in that study until the sun went down and the house turned dark. I didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there, surrounded by his words, feeling him beside me. I still didn't know if I wanted to find her. But I knew I wasn't done yet. The story wasn't over. Not yet. The next morning, I woke before the sun came up, the house still cloaked in shadows. My sleep had been shallow, full of half-formed dreams and faces I hadn't seen in decades. I made coffee the way my father always did, strong, black, and bitter, and took it outside to the back steps. The air had that crisp scent of thawing earth and pine. Spring in Montana is a quiet battle between sun and frost, and that morning, the frost was still winning. I sat there with the slip of paper in my hand again, reading her words over and over. I wasn't strong enough then. But I've watched it every year. Was it meant to comfort me? To open a door? Or was it just her way of saying she hadn't disappeared completely? I spent the rest of the morning in the barn. One of the old rescue mares, Juniper, had been favoring her left hind leg for a few days, and I wanted to check her gait again. Working with the horses had always helped me keep my footing when the rest of the world felt slippery. They didn't lie. They didn't pretend. While I walked her around the paddock, I thought about something Dad once said. You can't lead a horse from behind, he told me. You walk beside it. That's how trust works. It occurred to me that maybe this was true for people, too. Maybe that's why he never chased my mother. Maybe that's why he never told me the truth about where I came from, because he knew I'd come to it on my own when I was ready. Later that day, I called Marla in Missoula. She was the one friend who knew how to ask the right questions without sounding like she was trying to fix me. So what are you thinking? She asked after I told her everything, the photo, the note, the woman at the bookstore. I don't know, I said. I don't know if I want to open that door. But you already did. That shut me up. She was right. Finding the photo, tracing the postmark, reading my father's journals, I was already in. There was no neutral ground anymore. Even if I chose to stop now, I'd still be living in the shadow of what I didn't know. I just don't know if I want her in my life, I finally said. That's different, she said. You don't have to invite her in. But maybe you need to know where the pieces come from before you decide whether to carry them. It made more sense than I wanted to admit. I didn't want a relationship with someone who abandoned me. But I wanted to know why. I wanted to understand if I was the result of a mistake, or a moment of weakness, or something else entirely. That weekend, I drove back to Billings. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe another note. Maybe that same bookstore woman could give me a better clue. But she wasn't there. In fact, the store was closed. A handwritten sign taped to the window said, "Closed for family emergency. Back next week." I stood there a long time, unsure what to do next. My gut said to wait. So I walked the block. Then another. Ended up at a cafe I hadn't seen before, low lighting, rustic charm, chipped white mugs. While I was waiting for my coffee, I heard someone behind the counter talking to an older woman at the register. She was in here again last week. Same scarf. Blue with the little birds on it. Left another of those notes in the mystery section. My spine straightened. I walked up slowly and asked, "Excuse me, sorry I couldn't help but overhear. Did she leave a name?" They looked at me, hesitant. "She doesn't talk much," the barista said. "Older, quiet. She just drops off the notes and leaves." "Do you remember what the note said?" They exchanged a glance. I think the last one said, "Still watching." I never stopped. I felt a strange pressure in my chest. Not grief, exactly. More like vertigo. I left a generous tip and walked out without finishing my drink. That night, back at the ranch, I pulled out the family photo albums, something I'd avoided since Dad passed. I sat on the living room floor with the dusty boxes stacked around me, flipping through page after page of worn-out smiles and frozen summers. Birthday parties. 4th of July cookouts. Photos from Yellowstone trips and calving seasons. In the very back of one album, tucked behind a yellowing Polaroid of my third-grade school play, I found a photo I didn't remember ever seeing before. It was a young woman early 20s, maybe with eyes shaped like mine and a familiar tilt to her smile. She was holding a baby. Me. She was standing in front of a trailer that looked like it was parked near Red Lodge. Nothing fancy. Bare bones. On the back, in pencil, Rowan, 1984. Her first laugh. I stared at that picture for a long time. It was the first time I saw her as a person, not just a disappearance. She was real. She held me. She laughed. She smiled. And then she left. I didn't cry. I just sat there with that strange tightness in my throat and the taste of old resentment in the back of my mouth. And I started to wonder, what would I say to her if she stood in front of me now? Would I scream? Would I walk away? Or would I ask the one question that had echoed through every hollow part of my life for decades? Why? Not how. Not who. Just why. I didn't expect her to come to me. But she did. It was 2 weeks after I found the photo tucked inside the album. I was in the garden near the edge of the property, the one Dad and I used to plant together in spring. The tomatoes were just sprouting. I had my gloves on and dirt under my nails when I saw the car coming up the drive. An old silver Subaru. Clean, but clearly lived in. It stopped at the gate like it knew not to assume permission. She stepped out slowly. Wore jeans and a long cardigan. Her hair was gray now, cropped short. And she had that same scarf with the bluebirds I'd heard described soft and faded like a memory that won't quite leave. I stood up, brushing my hands off on my jeans. My heart thudded against my ribs, but I didn't move toward her. She had to close that distance. If she was going to cross a threshold, it needed to be one she chose fully. She took a step, then another. And then she stopped about 10 feet away. "Rowan," she said. Her voice was lighter than I remembered. Not cold. Not desperate. Just quiet. I nodded. "You found your way back." She looked down. "I'd been around. I just didn't know if I had the right." I stared at her. "You didn't. But you're here now." A long silence passed between us. I didn't feel it. "I sent the photo," she said. "And the notes." "I figured," I said. "I didn't expect you to respond. I just needed you to know I was still out there. Still out there. Not still loving. Not sorry. Just out there. Like a ghost finally trying to step back into the world." "I found the records," I told her. "The original birth certificate. I know I wasn't his by blood." Her face flinched. Not shocked. But wounded. "I didn't leave because I didn't love you," she said. "I left because I was weak. I made mistakes. Your father was a better person than I ever was." "You didn't just leave me," I said. "You let them twist the story. You let Cora say I didn't belong. That I was a mistake. She looked ashamed then. And I needed her to. Because that's what the truth sometimes requires: confrontation, not comfort. I thought I was protecting you by staying away, she said. You were protecting yourself, I said flatly. Another pause. Another wave of silence. And then I saw the flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe grief. But it didn't undo the years. It didn't rewrite what had already been done. I'm not here to ask for anything, she said finally. I just wanted you to know that he was the best decision I ever made. Letting him raise you. I didn't deserve either of you. It wasn't an apology. Not quite. But it was the closest she'd ever come. I nodded once. Then you know why I won't forgive you. She blinked, surprised. But, I added, I'll give you something better. I'll let you see what I became without you. I gestured to the ranch behind me, to the land I now ran, the horses I rescued, the legacy I built without her. I wanted her to feel it. The weight of everything she didn't get to be part of. She turned her eyes toward the fields. Watched the sway of the grass in the wind. The sun casting long lines across the pasture. Looks like you did all right, she whispered. No, I said. I did better than all right. I did exactly what he raised me to do. And then I gave her the final blow. I took the land Cora wanted. The house she claimed. I took the name of the woman who tried to dirty. And I made it better. I didn't just inherit this place, I made it mine. She didn't argue. She just stood there, taking it in. You said you've been watching, I said. Well, now you've seen it. This is the life you gave up. The daughter you could have known. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak again, but I cut her off. That's enough. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just turned and walked back to the garden. Behind me, I heard the car door open. Then close. The engine started. She didn't come back. Cora never contacted me again. I think, in her own way, she knew the courtroom wasn't her true defeat. It was knowing that she couldn't undo the one thing she hated most. He chose me. The courts proved it on paper. The land proved it in roots. And the house, still standing tall against the mountain wind, held every word, every lesson, every memory that she tried to steal. As for the wedding ring, his ring melted down. I took it to a small jeweler in Bozeman and had it recast into a simple band and a pendant. The band I wear every day. Not on my ring finger, but on a chain around my neck. The pendant? I had it engraved. More than blood. And I buried it under the cottonwood tree behind the stables, the one we used to sit under every spring. Because that's where he belongs. And that's where she'll never touch.